where owners actually get hurt, interface failures, hidden damage, and a defensible maintenance strategy. Hello, yet again. This is Forrest Owens. I'm an aviation lawyer, a private pilot, and an FAA licensed airframe and power plant mechanic. Finally, let's discuss where large turbine owners usually get hurt in the real world. Because the biggest maintenance losses rarely begin with a wrench alone, they usually begin at the interface between people, systems, and assumptions. The first danger zone is the owner managed repair station gap. A management company may schedule the inspection. The service center may perform the work. The crew may write up the discrepancy. But if nobody owns the decision architecture, important items fall into the seams. One team thinks another team is tracking the airworthiness limitation. Another assumes the engine program provider is managing all reserve issues. Someone believes a service bulletin is merely optional when in context it is critical to continued reliability or tied to another mandatory requirement. The result is not one dramatic error, it is a sequence of quiet omissions. That's why owners need to remember that maintenance risk on large turbine aircraft lives, again, at the seams, not in the obvious line item, in the seam between the line items. The second danger zone is post-maintenance complacency. High-end aircraft create high-end confidence. The aircraft looks polished. The service center is reputable. The invoice is substantial. Everyone assumes the risk has been reduced because money was spent. But Section 91407 reminds us that after certain maintenance, the legal question is not whether the bill was paid. The question is whether the aircraft was properly approved for return to service, properly documented, and when required, properly checked before carrying passengers. The Learjet recommendations issued by the NTSB in 2025 make that point with unusual force. The board's preliminary findings identified a large gear maintenance vulnerability that was not readily detectable during routine maintenance or pre-flight inspection. That is precisely the sort of large turbine lesson owners should remember. Some maintenance errors hide behind normal-looking airplanes. They are found only when verification was designed well enough to catch them. A third danger zone is hidden damage and undocumented history. Large turbine aircraft can accumulate corrosion, hard landing history, foreign object damage, structural repairs, undocumented modifications, cannibalized components, or records gaps that do not stop today's flight but absolutely affect tomorrow's value and insurability. The owner who says it's flying fine may be making a technical observation is far less important than the legal and economic one. Can the aircraft records prove what the aircraft actually is? This is where disciplined maintenance governance becomes memorable. It's recommended that aircraft owners think in 3 files, not one. File number 1 is the legal airworthiness file. Inspection program, ADs, airworthiness limitation, return to service entries, test requirements, and due lists. File number 2 is the technical risk file, recurring discrepancies, trend monitoring data, engine and APU exposure, corrosion control, vendor findings, and service history patterns. File number 3 is the transaction file, records completeness, damage and repair substantiation, alteration approvals, component traceability, and program transfer readiness. When those 3 files tell the same story, the aircraft is easier to operate and easier to defend. A fourth area to consider is treating maintenance as a vendor relationship instead of an owner-controlled function. The best turbine owners do not merely approve invoices. They establish maintenance policy. They decide what requires second-level review. They define which discrepancy must be elevated immediately. They require written forecasting for major upcoming events. They demand consistency between the aircraft records, the maintenance tracking software, the engine program statements, and the actual installed configuration. And that kind of discipline is what makes a maintenance strategy defensible. And defensibility is the right word. It matters if the FAA asks questions. It matters if the lender performs collateral review. It matters if an insurer investigates a claim. It matters if a buyer opens the records room. And it matters if an incident occurs and counsel later has to prove that the owner did not simply rely on assumptions. So, what should a large turbine owner do as a practical strategy? First, identify the selected inspection program in the records and confirm who is responsible for scheduling every required task. Second, build one master status view that integrates inspections, ADs, airworthiness limitations, life-limited parts, engine program status, and deferred items. Third, require enhanced verification for high consequence maintenance, especially flight controls, landing gear, pressurization, engine-related work, or any task that could materially affect flight characterizations. Fourth, preserve complete records in digital form, but retain source document integrity. Fifth, run periodic independent maintenance audits, not because you distrust your providers, but because turbine aircraft are too complex to manage on confidence alone. Here is something to remember. And in closing, the safest maintenance budget is not the one that buys clarity before it buys urgency. Large turbine ownership rewards discipline and it punishes ambiguity. The owner who keeps these aircraft lawful, reliable, and valuable are usually not the ones who spend the least. They are the ones who know exactly what they are buying, and every maintenance dollar, compliance, evidence, reliability, and preserve value. In short, the most important maintenance considerations for owners of large turbine aircraft are not only mechanical, they are also legal, documentary, operational, and economic all at once. When those four dimensions are aligned, the aircraft is not merely airworthy on paper, it is managed in a way that can withstand scrutiny. And here's something to take away and remember. In large turbine ownership, the maintenance strategy that protects safety is usually the same strategy that protects value. Thank you for your interest in this topic. This information is provided for informational purposes only, and it should not be construed as legal advice. Questions are always welcome. Please direct them to admin@aviationlegalcounsel.com. We look forward to helping you navigate these issues and answer your questions with precision.